Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. We are living in historic times right now as we enter into, I think, our 6th weeks of not being in school. And I think before I get into this lesson, I just want to acknowledge that I think the most important thing that you can do for yourself during this time is just notice how you're feeling. Just notice. Take a moment, pause. Um, Sit with yourself for a second and say, how am I feeling? And then whatever feelings come up, whether they're harder feelings like depression or like anxiety, or even just something like boredom or feeling extra annoyed about things or extra sleepy or whatever it is, knowing that there is a place of strength in you that is deeper than the effects of all of those feelings that you can bring out and draw upon the skills that have kept you going for the last 14, 15, 16 years that will keep you going from here on out. So I want to acknowledge all of the work that you all are doing in your homes as you adjust to this time. It is work. This is a lot of work, and I just want to acknowledge that is hard, and that you keep sitting with yourself and being kind to yourself as you figure that out. Um, the idea behind this week's lesson is that the things that you are learning and the things that you are experiencing during this crisis don't have to just be for you, and that we can use what you guys are learning to show future generations what was this time like? What was this really like to live during the 2020 pandemic or whatever it is that we're going to call this? And what are some skills that you've built up or some things that you've learned or even just some thoughts that you're having and feelings you're having that we can pass on to future generations. We're really the makers of history right now. And so today we're going to look at and see what are some history that we can create together about this experience as a way to also reflect on your own experiences. So you guys know that I'm a history teacher besides being a freshman seminar teacher. And as historians in our class, we're all historians in my class. And we use primary sources to learn about the past from what other people have left behind. You've been doing this in your history classes as well. Things like newspapers, letters, right, articles, paintings, and other pieces of art are historical artifacts that can tell us about the time. Photographs, and then here's a photograph of the 1918 Spanish flu, which was before this year the worst pandemic of the last 100 years. Looks pretty familiar, right? So we can tell a lot about history through a photograph, through an article, through an image, even. And a lot of historical primary sources that are valuable, some of them were written by children and teenagers. So this is the diary, probably one of the most famous ones, the diary of Anne Frank. Some of you may have heard of this. She was a teenage girl who her whole family was hiding in like this attic during Nazi Germany when the government was trying to kill all Jewish people. And so she and her family were Jewish and they were hiding away from the Nazis. So they were stuck in their tiny, tiny space and could not go out at all and had to be totally quiet. And so she's writing about her experience and her diary, and she's also a very good writer. Her diary is how we know a lot about the intimate experience of what that was like. And she and her family were captured eventually. And this is kind of a sadder and maybe more dramatic story than the one we're facing, but definitely showing the effects of having primary sources from young people as a valuable way to tell the story of things that are happening in our world. So we're going to create a time capsule together. This is an example of a time capsule. A time capsule is a collection of information collected to inform future people about a moment in time. In other words, we put a bunch of stuff from a certain moment in time from now in a box, and then you open it 50, 100 years later. Now, because we have the internet now, we're not going to use a box. We're going to collect it in a digital space. But that's what a time capsule is. You keep information for later, and then you open it 50, 100, 200 years later. This is a time capsule that was opened a few years ago in Baltimore's Washington Monument. It was from 1815. They put all of these documents together in these jars in a box to say, we're going to tell the future about what 1815 was like in the United States. And it was opened 200 years later. So it's a pretty cool opportunity to just speak directly to people in the future. And all freshman seminar classes are going to be making this together. So we have the power to make history. Very cool. We're going to do the OMHS Time Capsule 2020. So you get to contribute something to this time capsule. And the door is wide open for the kinds of things that you can contribute. So this is in the Learn About It section if you just want to read it yourself, but I'm going to talk through a few of the different options that you have for things that you can make. My suggestion to you, pick one of them and then pick one or two prompts, which I'll show you at the last slide, and then you can start your creation. Um, So you're going to create a source for our time capsule. I've talked. What should you make? So here's some of my suggestions for what you could make. So you could create a daily journal of your thoughts and feelings and observations of the past few weeks. And again, take a look at those prompts on the last slide for some journal entries. And you can write a journal, but just writing a journal of your thoughts and feelings can be a great way to show this is what this experience is like to future generations. You can also keep a daily log of your activities. This is a little different from a journal. This is like literally writing down what you're doing every day, which may seem like, oh, well, obviously, and then I played video games, and then I went and got some ice cream from the fridge or whatever. But even just doing that, right, can show somebody in the future who has a totally different context some stuff about what you're doing. So that could be something that you do. You can keep an audio journal or podcast. I link this in the Learn About It section, this link to how to make your own podcast, but you can also just do a phone recording on your phone or using VoiceThread on the computer, recording yourself talking about your experiences, or you can get a little creative with it, interview somebody, think about how you want to do that. You could interview a family member and record your interview, so talk to them about what their experiences are like. You could also do this if you have a family member who's in another country. You could talk to them about their experiences there and do a comparison. That could be really excellent reporting and historical evidence. So that's an idea. If you do this, write down some questions first so that you're really prepared for your interview, and make sure that you say who you're interviewing and when you're interviewing them so that we know. You can create any piece of art, drawing, digital art, painting, collage, use those prompts and go, make some art. You can create a photo journal. So that's just you taking pictures of things that kind of represent this experience for you, represent your thoughts and feelings, and you can have it like a digital gallery of those things. So send me a series of photos and we can put them into a digital gallery together and like go wild with editing or whatever you want to do. You can write a song, you can write a rap. Again, use those prompts if you want. Lay down some bars, make some art. You can report on the news. So if you've been paying attention to what's going on in the news lately, you could do a roundup of headlines that stood out to you. Write your responses to them. Be like, this is what Governor Hogan said today, and this is what I think about it. Or like, this is the latest news about what Trump said or what I've heard, and this is what I think about it. You can make a zine, which is like a little book of your own publications. It's like often done by punk communities and other DIY communities. It's a fun way to show pictures, drawings, writings in this easily shareable medium. And there's a bunch of examples of different zines that you can look at. So it's basically you just making a little book. Take some papers, fold them up together, and make a little book of your experiences, which is pretty fun because they're really easy to distribute. You can curate some memes, pick your favorite memes or even videos or whatever. What are people saying on the internet? That's historical evidence for how people are processing this time. So you could do that. You can make a video, make a TikTok, right? Show something about this time through video, collaborate with friends. You can make a documentary, you can make a drama, you could make like a news report of here's what it's looking like from inside my house, right? So any of these things you could work on. And and if you want to work on something with somebody else and turn it in together, you absolutely can. You could make a recipe book or a cooking vlog. I know that some of you are using this time to learn about cooking and learning how to cook and try new recipes, so you can do that. And you can make a poem, a story, a comic, get creative, write a short story. You can make it fictional if you want to. It doesn't even have to be real. I give you some prompts below: a love story between two people social distancing, an action or adventure of a superhero saving the world from infectious disease. Like you can go wild. And then another thing you can do is write a letter to the future. So what do you think people should know or remember or learn about this time in history? So dear future generation, let them know what you think. These are, I'll move my little face, these are some prompts that you can choose from to get you inspired. So you can use these prompts for any of those different options. You could use them for an audio journal. You can use them for photographs. You can use them for making a video. You can use it for writing a journal of your thoughts, any of them. I think that what you should do is choose 2 prompt questions that stand out to you, and then choose one of the options that I just talked about, one of the media. So maybe you're like, oh yeah, I really like the idea of making a video. I'm going to make a video. And then go in here and choose 2 of the prompt questions that stand out to you. Um, and here are the prompt questions. How are you feeling right now? What's the best part of being home from school these last few weeks? What's the hardest part? What's it like to be a student during this pandemic and attend school online? How has your life changed the most since COVID-19? What has kept you inspired or helped you keep your head up during this time of crisis? How have you stayed in touch with family, friends, and community during social distancing? Make a prediction. How do you think the world will change as a result of this pandemic? Will society return to normal? How do you think our culture and society will change and adjust? Imagine that a similar pandemic happens generations from now. What advice do you have for future people, especially teenagers? What do you hope people will learn from this pandemic? What do you hope is not forgotten? What's inspiring you right now? I guess that's kind of like the other question. Who or what are you grateful for? What have you been reading or watching lately? What do you think about it? Make some fan art. Take a moment to notice where you are. What are 5 things you see, 3 things you hear, 1 thing you smell? Describe them. So again, any of these prompts that stand out to you, or you can pick your own as well, but if you're feeling stuck, that's the way I would say to get started, is choose 2 of these prompts to get you going, 1 or 2, and then choose one of the media that I gave you, all those different options of something that you could create. And I'm really excited to see what it is that you make. We're going to put this all together. We're going to save it. And this is going to be the sort of thing that I might show to future generations of my class as we do our own studies of history. So again, I hope you guys are doing really well, and I'm excited to see what you make. Reach out to me with any questions or anything that you have for ideas.